Richard Dolan, my friend, we're live. It's Saturday at noon. Here we are, nonstop hustle around here, I tell ya.
Hey, listen, if that was my cue to agree and align, you're absolutely right. Nothing beats Saturday morning sessions when we've got friends from coast to coast dialing in, listening in, tuning in to just find out, hey, what's this encore presentation of the Money Clinic all about? He's going to be talking about financial confidence and how to get that and get it today. And what's all this talk about learning the new money mastery solution? We're going to have a really cool action-packed 60 minutes.
Awesome. So, folks, as you're logging in, I'm going to just hit a few buttons, press a few levers. But why don't you tell us where you're from and introduce yourself real quick in the chat. That way we know you know where the chat box is. So let's do that now and see where we got people coming in from, Rich. I know, like you said, coast to coast. This is huge. Money Clinic has been amazingly received, really amazingly received, hasn't it?
And here's what's really cool is that I turned the computer around so you can see it, but I got my video up on my other side here on my particular iPhone. And we've got people and friends actually, in fact, following us from New York, Miami, Dubai, Paris, the UK, Scotland, and other parts of the world who are keen to champion and be the ambassadors for the Money Clinic movement. People are saying, friends of mine that I've worked with over the years, who I've been interacting over the years, I've even met and have fortified relationships over the years through social media and all the work that we've been doing. And they're saying, the time is now for financial transformation. The time is now for a financial evolution. The time is now that people build stronger financial resilience than actually having to succumb to financial suffering. And so people are just really a stand for the education, for the information, for the transformation. And I'm just so stoked that it's not just a localized phenomenon. In our fine country of Canada, it's actually, in fact, some real great academic love that people are saying, hey, man, I get what it means to be an entrepreneur. I get what it means to take risks. I get what it means to go and build a company but I got to shift my relationship with money, because until I do, I will dance the same way. I won't hear the music the way I should. I won't really follow the beat the way I can. And I certainly won't enjoy myself the way I could. So really being able to untether yourself and unleash yourself with the joy and freedom that comes with being with money, being with wealth, and being with worth in a way that leaves you with power, with grace and ease. That's a gift that both you and I are jacked to give. Aren't you there, JG?
Absolutely, man. I'm pumped to be here. It's beautiful. It's sunny. I got a latte. It's the place to be on Saturday. And I got to tell you, Richard, I have been blown away with I don't know if that's water or vodka, but either way, I applaud you, brother.
This is not vodka.
So I've been absolutely blown away with the response of these money clinics. We've had two. We got two more to go. But the two we've had have been completely packed, completely sold out. And the next two are just picking up more steam. Now, when you come up with this idea, Rich, I was super grateful for everyone here for this reason. I have attended countless programs, trainings, seminars, symposiums, workshops, deep dives, all of the above. And so often you just don't retain as much as you'd like because there's so much going on. And here you are giving your time to be able to recalibrate and provide this encore presentation or this encore segment, really condense everything you talked about and present some new pretty cool information. So Rich, thank you to you for that, pal.
Well, you're welcome. And I want to make sure I just take some responsibility for one thing that you said, which is that the Money Clinic and the body of academia that we created, not just with Alan Kahn, but more importantly, an incredible faculty of thought leaders and authors and researchers, from Lynn Twist to Deepak Chopra to Dr. Martin Seligman to Dr. Fernando Flores. The list is countless of people that have really contributed in a powerful way. But this was not an idea. This was a necessity. This came out of my working with people who've been really working hard at pursuing their dream of living a financial free life through investing in real estate. That's where it started. And my history of being in the wealth management business for 25 years, a visiting professor at the Schulich School of Executive Development Business, division of York University. I mean, having raised $7 billion, working with hundreds of financial advisors, written countless books and titles on the topic of money, I tell you that this subject haunts humans most. You know, the self-talk, the self-doubt, the self-worth, the self-concern, the self-obsession around, am I doing this right? Do I have enough? Am I worth enough? Can I get more? Do I deserve more? Is the number one cause for people to have financial cancer in their lives. Something that is curable, something that is escapable, something that you can in fact reverse the impact of, which is something you can be at the source of, truly undoing. And so in working with hundreds of investors across the country for the past 7 years now, JG, I got to tell you that I was brokenhearted to hear that the financial technologies, the investment strategies, and even the asset classes, whether it's stocks or bonds or even real estate, no matter what people did, no matter where they went, there they were. And so we had to pull it back and say, look, if we peel back the layers of concern, of crisis, of upset, and of self-limiting beliefs, if we get to the heart of what could really, truly get you really moving powerfully with money, with worth, and with wealth, that would be a worthwhile body of education. That would be a worthwhile seminar. That would be a worthwhile mission. And that's why we're here. So what do you think? Do we get on with this encore presentation?
Let's get it on, baby. Let's get it on. You know what, Rich? I'll turn it over to you, and I'll dial back in at the end. Have fun.
I like it, man. Well, listen, folks, I'm really happy to be here. And I want to get into my screen sharing mode, because what I've done is I've taken the time to really put together three great things. First, a great encore conversation, a continuation of what it was that we've been doing in this Money Clinic conversation in transforming your relationship with money, with worth, and with wealth. There was one conversation that we did not dive deep into and or get very immersed in. The number two thing is I want to reveal to you, out of our research and out of our conversations, we've learned what people do. Those who are living financially confident lives, what they do to do so and do it so well. And by the way, they weren't born that way. They were born in the same way you and I were. They were living with the same concerns you and I do. They were living life hiding from the haunting memories of financial mistakes, financial scenarios that went wrong, and financial concerns and regrets that continue to nibble at their financial confidence. But the third most important part is I want to share with you what we've done. We've done in record time was mobilize money mastery solutions that are fitting these types of concerns right now. So let's get straight to it, shall we? The reality that for all of the people on this call and for those who are watching me from coast to coast is we've all gone through the one-day money clinic. We spent time understanding your financial footprint, as in where you are, the what so. We took time in understanding your financial composition, which was step 2. And it's all about just what made up your financial worth, what financial wealth, what your financial means really were. We then went into your financial identity, your relationship with money. We began to really dive deep into your beliefs, your values, and your stories about money and about the what so in your life financially. We then spent time in step 4 understanding what your financial focus was, because as we know, Tony Robbins says it best, wherever focus goes, money flows, and wherever money flows, energy goes. And that is a big deal. Lots of people, 92% of those we've polled in preparation of the Money Clinic says that people are not clear on their financial goals, aspirations, aims, and or focus. So we've got to, in fact, get refocused. We spent some time on understanding the financial cycle for people, as well as understanding their financial drive, their motivation, the visceral drive to want them to be better, for them to escape the wrath of those concerns and upsets, and for them to really rise up and understand that fear can go 2 ways. As an acronym, fear everything and run, or face everything and rise. And that's the positive side to really be on. Financial happiness was a definition that we shared, which was really inspired by the works of Martin Seligman and Lynn Twist. And then we spent some time on really performing financial alchemy. Let me pause here for a moment. Financial alchemy, like the old true mythology of turning dust into gold, alchemy is really turning that which upsets you into opportunity. And so the financial alchemy that we performed in the time that we spent together over the clinics that you've attended really covered being able to be reconciling yourself financially, historically, familially, like relationally, and spiritually. And it all came down to one thing, and I want to say this very clearly: financial forgiveness. Being able to forgive yourself, being able to forgive others, being able to forgive the mistakes, the errors, the judgment calls, the conclusions, the assessments, the data you thought was reliable, or the moves that you made with your money and broke down, broke up, and or lost out. Just let go, right? And that leaves you financially refired. And when you're financially refired, you're able to financially reset. And by financially resetting yourselves after the one-day clinic isn't about forgetting what you've done, not in fact letting go and then blowing up all that you've gotten accomplished, or to forget and forgive all things that have happened. It's just to press reset. It's not to in fact erase all your progress, but to understand that you're going to perfect things going forward. So for us, what we know is it's so true that if you don't heal what hurt you, you'll bleed on people who didn't cut you. And this phenomenon follows us not just in life and in our relationship to what it takes to build a business or be an entrepreneur or handle love powerfully or relationship powerfully, but our money powerfully. And so inside of our mechanism, what we recognized was what was missing. The encore presentation we're about to share right now with you is everything there is to know about the financial recalibration, which starts with what we call the theory of change. So to financially refire yourself, you've got to know what the theory of change is. So before I click here, let's begin there. The theory of change. Now, there's 3 slides. The content I want to read to you because I want to make sure I set it up right. The theory of change is really, really, really simple. You see, friends, at the end of the day, what you've got to know is that it all takes a collaborative community to really appreciate the tools for building anything successful. I mean, anything at all. Whatever it is you want to build in your life, no matter if it's just a castle for one or a community for many, it takes collaboration, cooperation, and communication. And what we know is that when I look at the work that both my friend Coprinder and Whitney and their team of researchers and consultants in the field of organizational theory and human development, they introduced the concept of what's called an appreciative inquiry. An appreciative inquiry as a formal model for change. So what they did in a book called Appreciative Inquiry, they suggest that we shift our frame of reference from one of like solving a problem to one that seeks to identify the sources available in any collection of people for inspiring, mobilizing, and sustaining positive change. So what that means is you have to ask yourself, how would our practices surrounding change be any different? And if we started with positive presumptions that organizations, people like you and I, could be the center of human relatedness and that you're alive with infinite constructive capacity, what would that look like? Well, you've got to know that this capacity lives in all of us at any time and anywhere. So when you dig into the work that they did, what we are and already have, we can see possibilities and identify a vision and make a commitment and act on it. Like, think about it. You and I both know that you have a vision. You know what's possible. You're willing and have even made commitments in making money, generating wealth, or producing worth. But the acting on it part takes a leap of faith. It truly takes a calculated step to leave the footprint of concern and actual conservativeness to that which requires confidence, to that which requires courage. You know, Buddha told his followers that whatever they choose to give their attention, their love, their appreciation, their listening, and their affirmation to that which would grow in their life and their world. He likened one's life and the world to a garden that calls for sunlight and nourishment and water to grow. But in that garden are the seeds of compassion and forgiveness and love and commitment and courage and all the qualities that affirm and inspire us. So alongside those seeds and in the same garden are the seeds of hatred, the seeds of prejudice and the seeds of vengeance and the seeds of violence and all the other things that are hurtful. And inside of that therein lives the seeds of what decays, the seeds of what leads to death, the seeds of what leads to the catastrophic and irreversible impact that in fact live embedded in our financial dreams and pursuits. So with that said, what we know is destructive ways of being are one of those seeds. And these seeds and many more like them exist in the same garden. So when you really understand that wherever your attention is, it leads to the growth of the seeds. And wherever our attention goes, those that we give our attention to Well, fuels the growth. You concerned about the fears, upsets, and concerns, you put a lot of attention and effort into them, guess what? You end up with a lot of strong fears. My mother once said that if you focus on all of your weaknesses, you'll end up growing up with stronger weaknesses. Same idea, right? So your attention is like water and sunshine, and the seeds we cultivate will grow and fill our garden. So what you've got to know is if we choose to invest our attention in the seeds of scarcity and acquisition and accumulation and greed, and all that springs from those seeds, then scarcity is what will fill the space of our life and the space of our world. So the problem is that we're only activated in financial conversations, in conversations about money and wealth and worth, in ways that whatever concerns us activates us. That might be great to spur you into action, but that which you're concerned about and lives as a concern, whatever that seed is, only grows stronger. So it grows stronger regardless of your results, without disposing of that particular concern, upset, regret, and or angst. Without doing that, without diffusing the very source of what activated the fear, what activated your concern, what activated the angst. If you don't, in fact, diffuse it and rid yourself of it, it's just going to get watered and grow at a later time. So if we tend to the seeds of sufficiency, though, with our attention and use of our money like water to nourish them with soulful purpose, then we will enjoy that bountiful harvest, yeah? So for any of us in the fertile soul of our appreciation, new possibility takes root, and it grows without limits in the lasting light of our attention. And this is where people who have said for a long time through books and workshops, seminars and the like, they said that if you do what you love, the money will follow. And it's because if you put your focus in what you're passionate about, what you're gifted at, and what really has you lose yourself, then you don't get caught up in the fear and concern. And that's why a lot of artists, whether those who wield paints and or craft and sculpt things, or craft and produce music or act, when they follow their passions, they live with very low needs, with very little financial concerns. So their craft is all they pursue. And that's why you hear of such incredible epic stories where people go from nothing to something in that world of expression, because they follow their passions. Unlike that, though, we don't have a lot of actors and actresses and would-be musicians on this call. In fact, what we find is that ordinary people, and we all generally are, just want to make ends meet with far less concern and upset, and less angst and concern for what isn't, and whistle while we work rather than holding our breath while it works. So there's the following phases of making these things happen. And what we call this is the cycle of change. The first cycle of it is in the pre-contemplative stage. And this is where the lion's share of us get stuck and or in fact remain in. The pre-contemplative stage is the first stage in which a lack of awareness or reluctance to change is typically seen. So what we know is that you're tempted to perhaps characterize this as unaware or resistant to change, but rather the narrative for change must allow alternative outcomes to become possible. So when people have a goal of, let's say, I want to make $100,000 at the end of the year, well, is there anything wrong with 90,000 and 80,000 and 50,000? If those are all sub goals, right, or what I'd rather say sub aspirations, then are those not equally as good? So if a change in personal finance is synonymous with hardship, people likely feel insulted at being lectured that they are unaware of the need for change. So what I'm saying all this is, in this pre-contemplative stage, which is where the lion's share of people remain stuck financially, in order for them to escape that stage, they've got to not hear the need to change. They have to shift. They have to shift their focus on alternative outcomes. The next stage, should you escape it, is what we call the contemplative stage. It's the second stage of change. And in that particular stage, it's characterized by a decisional balance on whether to go forward with changing something financially or not. Now, ignorance and oblivience may be expressed in disputes about the preferred narrative about financial direction, but the requirement here at this stage is to change the narrative and direction for self among loved ones. And this is where alignment and agreement is important. Alignment and agreement. Now, with alignment and agreement, what that means is, let's say you're married and you've got a husband or you've got a wife. In that marriage, what you have is you'll always aim to have both alignment and agreement. But oftentimes you'll do something where they may not agree, but they align. Or they, in fact, do not align, but they might agree with you. They may not be willing to take the time or the effort. They don't feel like it right now, but they like that. So you are always aiming for both alignment and agreement. So there's a synchronicity with those that you're in a relationship in. Now, if you're on your own and you're single, then the agreement alignment has to be from within. I mean, an agreement with my values, an agreement with my morals, my view of the world, the belief system I have, my agreement to what I'm about to get done and or commit myself to is one thing. But the alignment is found in your behaviors, your actions, your commitments, the way you calendarize your appointments, the way you schedule your follow-up calls, the way you call the universe forward and say, hold me accountable, hold me to the task, hold me to account for the things I'm committed to. But often what will happen, especially if we're on our own and by ourselves, we'll agree within, but misalign with an outcome. And so what ends up happening is that we usually fall short. And the only sign and signal that you've not, and you've escaped the contemplative stage of change, is you're in the preparation stage. And the preparation state is a change without, well, actually, hold on. Change without preparation is change without a chance of success. So in that world, what we know is preparation is complex. We know this, like it takes work, but because it requires sensitivity to the past, the present, and the future. And by the way, in that world, that's where the financial narratives are really exposed, right? So in other words, people who are then saying, you know what, I'm done. I'm not going to contemplate it. I'm not going to be nagging myself about it. I'm agreeable. I'm aligned. I'm going to move. But in doing that, as they begin to really prepare, they have to unearth a financial past. They have to unearth their financial present. They have to open up statements, get their T4s, apply for loans, understand their current state of financial well-being. And that's when they start to understand the financial narratives that they've got. Ignorance, upset, suffering, or the best one, this is the best one, woe is me, poor me, and then blame occurs. But more of that another time. So the question that arises is like, who prepares what to do, what is necessary to fulfill the financial intention? It really comes down to the context of really knowing where you are on the playing field of planning, preparing, and partnering. You might want to write that down, not what you see in bold. You see, if you notice yourself in the stage of preparation, Richard, I'm moving on the field. I don't know what you're talking about, Slick. I'm doing things. I'm calling people. I'm learning stuff. Shit, I'm even here listening to you on a Saturday morning, for God's sakes. That's fine. You're preparing. But you want to ask yourself, of the three outcomes from preparing, are you planning? Are you preparing as in organizing your resources and rallying the people that are necessary for you to start executing on something? And are you even partnering? And what I mean by partnering is that, are you partnering with people who in fact fill voids of the areas of expertise that you may be shallow in and you may not be developed by, so that you actually have someone that's going to help you. So someone who does your due diligence, or someone who's going to do your budgeting, or someone who's going to help you, in fact, organize your taxes, or help you file them, or have you find out what kind of HST or GST or 123 that you owe to the government of some kind. Like, do you have people being able to support you in places that you've not been extension of creating great results? So when you know all this, when you know you're at the source of it, then you know you're in action, which is the stage 4 in the cycle of change. You see, this has all been a conversation about understanding that in shifting your relationship with money, wealth, and worth, yeah, you've got to know that there's various stages that you'll be in the cycles of change. And oftentimes, just being in the conversation doesn't mean that you're driving the conversation. Just because you're thinking about it doesn't mean that you're doing it. Just because you're thinking about losing some weight or getting in shape or starting a new diet or building a new home or starting a fresh relationship or restarting the 25-year-old relationship that you've been messing up with, just because you're thinking about it in the pre-contemplative stage doesn't mean that you've contemplated, that you've been preparing, or you're in action. You get my point? Just because it lives out there, you've got to be looking for where it actually exists out there. So action, the action stage, is about once you move in the action stage, you're committed to changes. You're no longer contemplating them. You're not thinking about them. You're not wondering, pontificating, guessing, or trying to figure out that if I made that change, will it impact me this way or will it impact me that way? You're actually truly in action. You've let go of the considerations. You've let go of the analysis. You've let go of all the things that you've been pondering and looking at. You're just in it. And so you feel the wind in your hair, right? You feel the wind in your hair. David Maxwell knows something about that. You can go in the chat box there and say, David, you feel the wind in your hair, and you'll see how hard he'll laugh. But check it out. Anyways, that said, when you're in action, changes entail making the viable budgets and learning necessary financial literacy skills that you need to start playing at the capacity that you need to. So all of you right now, for example, no matter if you're watching this live, if you're watching this on IG, or if you're watching this on Facebook, or you're watching this later, if you're learning, you're in action. So you're in the right place. And although the stage requires the most energy from individuals, then any of the previous stages have enabled it. You got to know that that's why this becomes a marathon. It's not a sprint, because in remaining in action isn't to exhaust yourself, it's to pace yourself. And ironically, restraint is most important because decisions around personal finance may be difficult to undo. So with that, as I continue the conversation on action, what I know is further, any newfound cooperative effort around the cycle of change and in the domain of action can become undone if joint decisions prove unwise. So the pathway between overconfidence and underconfidence can be obscured through years of conflict around muddled decision-making, primarily in marriages, primarily in partnerships, or primarily, if you're a young one on this call, with your parents. So planning and well-informed decisions are the keys to successful action stage activities. I'm going to say this one more time because this is huge and it's worth the price of admission here today, folks. Planning and well-informed decisions are the keys to being in this particular stage of action. And that takes time. It takes being sensitive. It takes hearing people out. It means being able to lean in and understand, own, and get complete about where you've messed up, where you've not been your word, where things are off, where things didn't come through, where you're just not with the financial integrity that's escaped you for whatever the reasons, explanations, facts, and or the evidence proves. The reality is this, is that when you're in the action stage, there's no more looking back, but it's about owning all that is behind you. So when you're in the action mode and doing so wonderfully and bravely, here's what it gives rise to, the maintenance phase. This is where you are able to maintain changes implemented in the action stage and have learned the skills necessary to achieve your goals. And this is where, and I know a lot of you are on the phone, I know that you're all dialed in. I've got friends across the country and around the world, we're happy that you're here, that have all said this. I find that when I start in a groove and I get things that are positively moving the right way, it gets easier, and it does. The corrective measures, the contemplation, the preparation, everything leading you up to action, it becomes actually a downhill slope from that point on into the rest of your life financially by design. Maintenance is important, but only followed by executing a great action plan. You got to be aware that shit happens, right? The market can crash, the economy shifts, oil and gas collapses, floods come, fires are blown out. I mean, shit happens. But you've got to remember those 8 great weights. There will always be a challenge in your way, and it's not to say that we become impervious to all of those things that would have us get stuck, have us stop, or have us stall being in action. The challenge for you is to maintain a narrative that is then dominated by a resolute domination and determination versus the pessimism or foolish optimism. Oh, that'll blow over, to hell with that, or that shit happens, but like most shit, when you don't touch it or stir it, it don't smell anyway, so just leave it alone. All that narrative, machoistic crap isn't what makes you the courageous soldier of moving on to financially creating the financial solitude you deserve. Your past errors can translate in either timidity or overconfidence, but each option can have disastrous financial consequences. So here's what we know. What we know, as I now head into the second phase of the conversation, is that we've learned doing this series of money clinic conversations across the country that holding hostage people's financial freedom come down to the following 4 things. Limiting beliefs, they have an absentism of a plan, they have fears that are controlling them, and or there's an absence of action. It's either 1, 2, 3, or all 4 of those. So for us, what we know is that your financial intention to look like this young lady is to actually feel and always aim for being financially unleashed. Write that down. Being financially unleashed. That should be your intention. That should be your aspiration. That should be your aim. Being financially unleashed means unleashed, untethered, unhindered by any limiting belief, any fear, any concern for a lack of plan or a lack of change. I'm in action. I'm moving forward. So as we've interviewed not only graduates from our money clinics, but those who've actually been a great source for all of our financial performance-based thinking, we want to find out, what is it that the financially brave, the financially courageous are doing? What's got that 95% of them doing it so well? So here's what we want to share with you. We've codified it. We found out that of the three things, they're always operating whole and complete. I mean, they're always looking in the world for where their word is out, where their integrity is out, where they've underpromised and never delivered, or if they've overpromised and never delivered. They're looking in the world, not just financially, but in their entire whole being, where are they actually not whole and complete. What we also found is that they often, 95% of the time, are being coached and being mentored. And being coached and being mentored are two separate things, and they could be the same person, but they're two different acts, yes? Being coached is being able to say, here's how you do it, here's how you get it done, and here's the way to get it done. A mentor says, yes, coaching, that's correct, this is how you do it, and this is how you get it done, but let me show you. Let me be with you. Let me follow you. Let me walk with you, climb with you, do it with you so I can see you getting it done, and so I can coach you as you, in fact, modify your approach. The last thing, though, is that they're accountable for action. And being accountable for action is a big, bold thing. I mean, that's where there's a lot of courage. That's where there's a big, great commitment. And this is where discipline lives. Discipline lives in being accountable in action. So they have a powerful and non-negotiable relationship with their level of financial confidence, their financial freedom, and more importantly, their financial sanity. So if you're sitting here and you're wondering to yourself, well, hold on a second. So what does that mean for me? Well, what it means is that this is the role model. This is the actual creme de la creme. This is the peak. This is the plateau. This is the summit for financial confidence. That's what you want to strive